What do you want? What do you want from today? What do you want in your relationship or the relationship that you imagine? If these 3 shifts take hold in your life, what will be different after you've commenced on this journey toward more relational living? What will you have that you don't have now? Reflect for a moment and be honest. What's the first thing that comes to mind about what needs to change? Notice what your first response is to that. What needs to change? And now, one of the things that I want to do, and this will be a recurring theme today, is to let you know the really good news is that you yourself have so much influence, not control, but influence in how much you do get of what you want. And that's what these 3 shifts today are meant to be about, understanding how we as individuals who live and thrive in relationship can influence what we have around us, how we can cultivate more connection. This world does not belong to us. We belong to one another. We're born to be connected to other humans. And as humans, we thrive when we have good relationships with friends, family, romantic partners. We thrive. Our health is better, our mental health is better, our sleep is better. But in a culture that rewards individual achievement, it's really hard to be connected in ways that feel good. It can feel like swimming upstream. One of the reasons it's hard to be connected is that back in the inner regions of our brains, we are actually evolutionarily reptiles, and reptiles are meant to live mostly alone unless they're mating. It's the reptile part of our brain that assesses for safety 4 times every second. And this includes emotional safety. Reptiles are really good at survival, fight, fix, control, flee. This is often what's rewarded in our families, unintentionally, but in our families, in our schools, in our workplaces, in the culture in general. We're rewarded for surviving, achieving, accumulating, but really we are meant to be mammals because we have this prefrontal cortex as part of our brain, and we're meant to exist in community. And as mammals, we have this capacity to assess the risk and then choose how we behave. As mammals, we're meant to be in groups and we're meant to be connected. I asked you to reflect early on. What do? We protect ourselves when we feel threatened. That's a natural instinct, and it's not going to stop. Who do we want to change? What do we want to change? Very often it's a person we want to change, and we just want them to be a little more this or a little more that. If that other person would change, everything would be okay. And I'll say this belief, actually my husband and I just started in this year working with an RLT therapist. And I notice in myself, I'm like, if only he's a really nice guy, but if only that's the truth on the inside of my brain at times. But where do we get to start? We get to start with ourselves and recognizing the influence that we actually have on how things go. And that leads us to shift 1. Shift 1 is understanding that we are in this together. It's the idea of leaving you versus me behind and really considering the us. Thinking about the relationship that you have, it could be with your sister, that relationship deserves to be cultivated, and together you collaborate on making it better. Now, I know I just said that we have influence and we don't necessarily need to rely on the other person. We can do this ourselves by asking, how could I behave that's going to cultivate a stronger relationship with this other person? What can I do on my side of the street? And to remember that it is in our best interest to cultivate these relationships because it feels better to be in healthier relationships. It's in my own interest to give. It's in my own interest to skip over with my little sister needing to be right and hold in that thought in order for things to feel good between us. It's in my interest because it's the air that we breathe. If you think of a pond, what are you going to dump into that pond that you're going to go swimming in? Are you going to dump in compassion and love and patience and generosity? Are you going to dump in judgment, harshness, urgency. Like, what are we putting in that pond? If you have a partner you're working with, it's beautiful to be able to sit side by side and collaborate and say, what are we putting in this pond together? But the pond's going to be much healthier if one person isn't polluting it. The reason it's hard not to pollute it is because all of these automatic behaviors that we have been reinforced and learned over time. And I heard this morning on something I was listening to that when a stress response is triggered, there's actually 1,400 biochemicals that are released into our systems, including, as we all know, cortisol and adrenaline, that flood our system in a way to increase our attention toward survival and decrease the attention toward the relationship. So this is not a simple project, but it's a really important project. And once we have the desire in mind to do something differently, once the desire's there, the awareness that we want to shift how we behave, we got to begin to do that. And this is where it's so hard, because the neural pathways toward the behaviors that we've used over time that we still may need in the outside world, the behaviors that interfere with close connection in relationship, those are like well-worn neural pathways in our brain. They are well-worn like the luge tracks that we might be watching in the Olympics. It is the easiest default pathway, protect, rather than consider and connect. So that's shift one, is learning to think about give consideration to the relationship and the health of the relationship. That brings us to shift two, which is this idea, this beautiful thought with awareness, which I'm hoping you're beginning to have, comes a capacity, perhaps, and a responsibility for sure to choose to do it differently. Terry always quotes Thomas Ubel, one of his friends, an amazing mystic. With awareness comes choice. And it always makes me smile because my very first therapy teacher started our very first day with this same quote. So it connects me to my small group of 6 where we train together. With awareness comes choice. But if we could, we would be choosing this. And it's not easy because of those well-worn neural pathways. Our brains want to be efficient. It takes intention. We need to bring intention to these new choices, and we'll need to practice it over and over and over in small ways to develop new neural pathways, to lay down new luge trails in our brains. And this takes some time. And here's another quote from Terry to really consider, which is that intimacy is not something that we have, it's something that we do. It's a practice. We develop it over time, and it's not our default wiring. What we all need to do, however our brain is wired, is learn to pause. One of the things that I know as a practicing couples therapist is that I can help people to understand what the steps are, but that doesn't mean people are going to follow them or remember them or even think that they're worth following. But what I do know is when they do take in this information, give it a try and practice it, it's incredibly helpful. So the timeout tool allows for that pause. It allows for the pause that's going to let you yourself choose to do something differently. It allows for responsible distance taking, which means leaving without fleeing. Those of us for whom flight is what we do to protect ourselves, and that's my personal favorite, is this isn't great, I'm out of here. But a timeout tool allows for a different type of distance taking, responsible distance taking. And then when you've regained your composure and you've shifted from that reptile brain into a mammal brain, you can choose, how do I want to behave here? How do I want to return? And I'll talk about that. And then maybe long-term, what do I want to do about this thing that's giving me the whoosh? Okay, so the first, we know that we use timeout as a circuit breaker. We use it as a chance to stop the protective habits that the reptile brain uses. We use it as a chance to take time to do something differently. The message is, if I stay here, I am not going to behave in a way that is good for our relationship. And therefore, that's the second step. First step, it's a circuit breaker. It's to interrupt the pattern, the bad pattern. The second step is it's from the I. I am going to take a timeout. This is not something that you tell another person to do. It's something that you say, I'm going to do this. The question always is like, well, what if the other person is X, Y, or Z? Well, yeah, if the other person is X, Y, or Z, and you have the capacity to continue to show up generous, flexible, loving, and caring, you can choose to stay there. But if the other person is behaving in ways that either need a protected boundary because they're disrespectful or harsh, we take the time out to go take care of ourselves and not subject ourselves to behavior that's not good for the relationship. So it's taken from the I, and it's responsible distance taking because a timeout includes the promise or the contract to return. If I stay here, it's not going to be good for our relationship in this moment or long term, and therefore I am going to take a time out. I'm using this signal because very often if we're in that place, even saying words is not going to be helpful. So, this is something, if you're working with somebody who knows what this is, you have a contract and you've come to an agreement that you know what the signal means. If you're working on your own, you might share it in case your partner's interested or curious about what you're doing, but you still can give the signal and take the time out. Giving the signal rather than a lot of words is important because if you are activated and wanting to protect yourself, this is something that can happen to me too, is like, it's really tempting to just like throw in a last word or a last explanation of why you're right as you're heading out to take your time out. A signal keeps words offline and makes it super simple. So it stands for, I'm taking a time out. I am going to regain my composure and I will return. It's really important not to get stopped. If I realize that I need to do something to cultivate a better relationship, protect the relationship, take care of myself, and the other person is following me, trying to convince me, you just don't want to let yourself get stopped. And sometimes that takes going into a room and closing the door. If you have kids, it may be it's time for a trip to the park if you're the one who's responsible for caring for the kids. If it's really tough, you may want to invite somebody over to be there to help you get some space and choose to be able to get away. So you give the signal, don't get stopped, and then there are check-ins. And they're prescribed check-ins. 20 minutes is the minimum typically, maybe a little shorter at a restaurant. But 20 minutes is the minimum because that's how long it takes your neurochemicals to begin to settle down. After that, it's 1 hour, 3 hours, half day, full day, or even overnight. Now, overnight might sound crazy at face value, but I have clients that replaced just like leaving, grabbing the car and going to spend the night in a hotel without even saying what they were doing with saying, I'm taking a time out. I will be back tomorrow morning. Much better for the relationship as a step toward better. These are prescribed intervals after which you either need to check back in and say, I'm so sorry, but I'm not ready yet. This is when I will come back, or you're ready and you come back. You can check in person. If you're in the same place, you can check in by text or phone. But it's the responsibility of the person who called the timeout to come back when they say they're going to come out back. And this is really, really, really important for people who might have a partner who have some tendency to get activated and upset when people are leaving. Often there's a really common question. Well, wait a minute. She always leaves. She always leaves. Well, how is this going to be any different? She always leaves. The difference is that she's leaving and she's committing to check in or come back in 20 minutes. So that means the person who doesn't like being left behind has to take care of themselves during that time, but they know, I get it, coming back. It's important to remember why you're going away. You're going away to regain your composure, to remember that you care about the person that you're with, to remember you're an elephant and not a reptile. It's not the time to go and rehearse in your mind all the reasons that you're right. That's not going to help you come back in a manner ready to cultivate the relationship. You're going to gain composure. And when you return in good faith. You return ready to meet the other person with some patience and some generosity. in order to do, and what you do is you come back to spend some time together, finish the meal at the restaurant, decide that, oh, you know what, tonight, something's off. We can't work on taxes. Let's wait 24 hours before we revisit this. Let's go watch the Olympics. You come back to spend time with this person. And then there may be a need for a 24-hour ban or moratorium on whatever content activated the need for a timeout. Now, if the content wasn't particularly problematic, or you have to figure out if your kid will or won't go on X field trip tomorrow, there are times that you have to deal with the content, but you're better able to deal with the content when you are both settled. So that's the 9th step. And the 10th step is just the idea. Like if you really, really, really can't work on taking a healthy relational time out, then it's time to get some help, very likely. And if there's specific topics that always trigger, you may need some help with those. We can't just understand this in our heads and execute this on our own. We heal in community. We are meant to be together with other people. The one image that I have about this, I said that it's hard to be relational and swim upstream in a culture that rewards individualism. But if you're swimming upstream together, it's a lot easier. In Maine, where I grew up, we have these like little alewives that swim upriver. In the Northwest, there's salmon that swim upriver to spawn, and they can't actually do it alone. One fish can't do it. They need to be swimming together, and they drift off each other. And without they do that, they literally can't make the journey. There's also been research that I heard about recently that shows that if you put them in front of a mountain and they have a hill to climb, they will estimate a certain level of steepness in the incline. You give them a backpack in front of a mountain, they will actually increase their estimate of how steep that mountain is. But you have them stand next to another person with a backpack on and estimate the incline. The estimates of the incline are less steep. So this is something that our primitive brains know even below our thinking brains. We're meant to do hard things together. And when the culture doesn't reward this, when often the culture and also individual therapy can reward this idea of like, oh my gosh, you learned to stand up. Now you're going to stand up. You're going to speak up. You're going to tell your truth. All important. But unless you're considering the relationship may really suffer. So finding groups of people who hold these values and want to learn to live in these ways, really important and really helpful. So I encourage you to think about finding a peer group. You could read Terry Real's book, Us Together. If you already have a book club, you could decide to read it. You could decide to read one chapter a month in addition to whatever else you read. And then you have a chance to talk about it with other people to understand what's hard for them, what's easy for them, what have they found success with, and how can you learn from what they're going through. So if you're not a reader, you can listen to Fierce Intimacy, which is an audiobook that Terry has about pretty much all the attitudes and skills that will help relationships thrive. You could do that with a friend. You could invite your partner. Will you do this with me, please? That's what an invitation is. Will you please? You could request a partner or a sibling. This is really important to me. I know you might not want to, but because it's important to me, are you willing to read this book with me or listen to this audiobook with me? Because we have a social media team. Now you can watch on YouTube or Instagram or I don't even know, maybe TikTok, much shorter form versions of this kind of content. And you could get a group going where you share the content and then here's the key part, then talk about it with each other. So community is really important. You're not going to be able to think your way to living more relationally.